You know, that moment when you're parked at your desk on a Tuesday afternoon, staring at the same spreadsheet you've been staring at for 15 years, and you do the math in your head. 7 more years until 65, then 8, and suddenly the calculator on your phone is open, and you are subtracting your current age from 79, which is the average American life expectancy, according to the CDC. And the number that pops up makes your stomach drop a little. Here is the thing nobody mentions when you're grinding away in your 50s, planning to retire someday. That number on your phone is not the number that actually matters. The number that matters is much smaller. Once you understand it, you'll never look at age 58 the same way again. Hey, I'm Olivia Bennett, and I spend an embarrassing amount of my life reading retirement research, government data, and longevity studies, so you don't have to. Coming into this topic, I was skeptical. The retire early or die at your desks crowd seemed dramatic to me, but the data changed my mind. Just not in the way you'd expect. Let me walk you through it. Picture your life as an hourglass. Most people assume the sand on top represents the years you have left. And as long as there is still sand falling, you've got time. That is the wrong hourglass. Though there are actually 2 of them sitting side by side on the shelf. One holding your total years. The other holding something researchers call your healthy life expectancy or your disability-free years. Those 2 hourglasses do not empty at the same rate. Here is the part that hit me hardest. According to the UK Office for National Statistics, a 65-year-old man has roughly 10.5 disability-free years remaining, and for women, it climbs slightly to 10.7. The US numbers track pretty close. When your coworker announces, I'll grind until 65 and then really start living, what they're saying, whether they realize it or not, is I'll trade my best decade for a final decade I might spend managing my knees, my blood pressure, and my doctor's appointments. The second hourglass empties way faster than the first one. This is where 58 starts to look very different. Stopping at 58 instead of 65 doesn't just buy you 7 extra years of free time. It buys 7 years from the top of the healthy hourglass, where the sand is gold. Those are the years where you can still hike a real trail, still chase a grandkid across a yard, still book a flight to somewhere annoying to get to. Financial planner Michael Stein actually named these years in his 1990-98 book, The Prosperous Retirement. He called them the go years. After that come the slow go years, where you are still active but you are not booking that 14-hour flight to Tokyo anymore. Following those are the no-go years, which speak for themselves. Retiring at 65 might get you a handful of go years. Retiring at 58 potentially doubles them. That is the trade. And honestly, that is the whole video. But I want to dig deeper because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, Olivia, what about the money? Yeah, that is the headache. Fidelity's most recent numbers show the average baby boomer holds roughly $249,000 in their 401k, which sounds okay until you remember. That is the average, not the median. The median 55 to negative 64 year old has under $100,000 saved, according to Vanguard data reported by CNBC. I am not going to sit here and pretend everyone can clock out at 58 and start sipping margaritas, because that would be insulting. The assumption I do want to challenge is the one you're probably making, which is that more years of work equals more security. Once you actually run the numbers on Social Security, the calculus gets weird. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age sits at 67, claim at 62, and you take roughly a 30% haircut while waiting until 70 gets you a bump. Most people assume working until 67 or 70 is the financially obvious choice. Here is what the obvious choice doesn't account for. Every year you delay, you're spending a year from that healthy hourglass to gain a year of higher monthly checks. You may not live long enough or healthy enough to fully enjoy. The math people do on paper rarely includes the math their body is doing in the background. Quick pause before I get into the part that genuinely surprised me. If you're getting something out of this, hit subscribe. I'm not going to do the whole song and dance about the algorithm, but YouTube genuinely does bury videos like this, unless people engage, and I'd rather keep making them than not. Cool. Moving on. Here is the part I expected to debunk going in. There is this email that is circulated for about 20 years claiming a Boeing study found employees who retired at 55 lived to 83, while those who retired at 65 only lasted another 18 months. The BBC actually investigated this back in 2012, and Boeing flat out said the study doesn't exist. Cross that one off your list as a myth. The real research, once you actually dig in, tells a more interesting story. A 2020 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health reviewed 25 longitudinal studies, and when researchers adjusted for prior health, early retirement showed no increase in mortality risk at all. 0. Meanwhile, an NBER working paper by Fitzpatrick and Moore documented roughly a 2% jump in male mortality right at age 62, which happens to be exactly when Social Security early eligibility kicks in. The researchers couldn't fully explain it, but the timing is suspicious. A separate Oregon state study tracking nearly 3,000 people in the health and retirement study found that working past 65 was associated with lower mortality. Here is the catch. The headlines always skip, though. The effect was strongest for healthy retirees, which means the people who were already healthy enough to keep working were the ones living longer. The work itself wasn't the magic ingredient. Their underlying health was. Researchers call this the healthy worker effect. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The people who work longer live longer claim is mostly just people who can work longer were healthier to begin with. Their hourglass was already running faster than everyone else's. If grinding until 67 is actually buying you more life, then what is? This is where it gets genuinely interesting. Dan Buettner's Blue Zones research found that the longest living people on Earth in places like Okinawa and Sardinia and the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica don't really retire. They don't keep their corporate jobs either, though they keep moving, keep contributing, keep being needed. Okinawan culture has a word for this called Ikigai, your reason for getting up in the morning, and it almost never involves a commute. That is the reframe I want you to sit with. Stopping at 58 isn't about quitting. It is about graduating. It is about getting off the conveyor belt while you still have enough sand in the gold hourglass to build something that is actually yours. Maybe that is a small business. Maybe it is volunteering. Maybe it is finally writing the thing, or fixing the thing, or being around for the people you've been promising to be around for. The Atchley framework, named after sociologist Robert Atchley, back in the 1970s, breaks retirement into 6 phases, and the one that traps most people is called disenchantment. That is the phase where you realize you spent 40 years preparing for a finish line and forgot to plan a life on the other side of it. You don't want to hit disenchantment at 67 with 3 go years left in the tank. You want to hit it at 60, fail at retirement, gracefully reorient, and spend the next 10 years on something that matters to you. Here is the practical takeaway. Pull up 2 numbers tonight: your current age and your realistic disability-free life expectancy based on your family history and your health. Subtract them. That is the sand in your gold hourglass. Decide honestly how many of those years you are willing to trade for a slightly bigger Social Security check or a slightly bigger 401k balance. For some people, the answer is a lot, because I genuinely love my work. And that is a beautiful answer. For most people, I suspect the answer is going to be smaller than they thought. My question for you, and I really do read the comments, is this: if you knew with certainty that you had exactly 10 healthy years left, what would you stop doing tomorrow? Not in 5 years. Tomorrow. Drop your answer below, because I'm genuinely curious what comes up for people. If this gave you something to chew on, subscribe so the next one finds you. Whatever you decide about 58, decide it on purpose, not by accident. The gold hourglass doesn't care about your spreadsheet. I'll see you in the next one.